Today's video is about lust and sexual energy and how you're going to use it to your advantage and to the best of your ability, okay? First of all, I want to start this video off by saying that as men, one of the most important aspects of who we are that's going to determine whether we are boys or men, it doesn't matter what age you are, is how good we are at controlling our sexual energy and our lust, okay? That's why as teenagers, we're just way more likely to indulge in our lust, okay? And usually when you're a teenager, you're still not versed in how to like traverse dating and interacting with women and all those things. So you just resort to sitting in your room by yourself and going on the internet and watching things that you shouldn't be watching and doing things that you shouldn't be doing, okay? Because it's the easiest, most judgment-free, like instantaneous way for us to release our sexual energy in that moment. And what does this do over time? Well, one part of the bad habit is obviously we watch bad stuff too often. Another part is we touch ourselves way too often. And the last part is it changes our mental environment and how we view the world, not just women and ourselves, but the world entirely. It has a huge effect on everything, right? So engaging in this behavior from a teenager creates this bad habit, and then when you get older, it becomes so ingrained in who you are and how you behave that you kind of lose the ability to detect how bad it actually is and how like negatively it's affecting you. Okay, so the first thing that we need to be able to do to utilize our sexual energy is we need to be able to pinpoint exactly where we are wasting it and abusing it. And so the first thing you need to ask yourself is, how often do I do these things? How often do I go on the hub, touch myself, and look at women in lustful ways? How often do you actually do that? Like, be honest with yourself and forget all the people that have told you that it's normal to do it. You should be doing it X amount of times a week, or you're going to get cancer, and it's normal, it's part of who we are. Ignore all that for a second. Yeah, how often do you actually do these things? Okay, the second thing that you need to ask yourself is, are you a very anxious person? Do you have a tendency to get depressed? Do you have a tendency to get nervous when talking to not just women but people in general? Do you resort to doing these things when something isn't going your way in your life? Okay, ask yourself all these things, and then you should be able to pinpoint whether or not it's actually a problem. Okay, because if you don't go on the hub, and if you don't touch yourself, and if you can have a normal conversation with anyone, then you don't need to worry about this stuff, and you can get straight into how you can harness your sexual energy. But if these things are a problem for you, you firstly need to be able to overcome the addiction, because it's an addiction. Okay, so ask yourself those things, and then we can move on. Now, this is the good part, which is how you're going to harness your sexual energy. It's almost like a pool of energy, right, that gets charged the longer we go without releasing our seed, right? The longer we go without releasing, the more this pool of energy gets charged. But the catch is that the more it gets charged, the more you're going to want to release it, right? Because it's a very, very overwhelming sensation. Like it's very like erratic. Okay, and I'm speaking from experience. Okay, I went almost 4 months or just over 3 months, 70 days without releasing. And after about a month and a half, I was doing like 4 hours of sleep a night and waking up as if I'd had 8 hours of sleep. Yeah, and I was doing things without hesitating. I was talking to people without hesitating. I was able to hold conversations without getting anxious. So you get this ball of energy, right? Imagine you have this ball of energy, and it begins to grow the longer you go without releasing your seed, and eventually it gets really, 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 really hard to control, right? So you might think, well, then isn't it just inevitable that we release our seed? And it's like you can go two ways with this, right? After a week or two of abstaining from releasing your seed, it gets to a point where you start to feel this surge of energy that you get, and you can either do two things with it. You can go and you can find a partner, right? That you can engage with like meaningful relations with, and then release, and then you don't get this like overwhelming sense of like shame and guilt that you would get if you just sat in your room and went on the hub, right? But there's a better way to handle this ball of energy than by just going out and getting a girl, because a lot of the times you go out and you get a girl and it doesn't really turn into anything, and it's kind of like an endless loop of just meeting a new person every month or two, and it not really being as meaningful as it should be, right? So instead of doing that, you can transmute the energy into getting what it is that you want in your life. Okay, so just imagine for a second, right? Compare two versions of yourself, right? The first version is someone who frequently releases their seed. All right, imagine this person trying to like achieve their goals in their life. Okay, the first thing you need to understand is that they are living on a lower frequency. Why is that? Because they're living on a lower frequency because they're constantly engaging in sexual lustful behavior, and lust is a low vibration. Okay, so if you're constantly engaging in this lust, that vibration will permeate through other areas of your life, not necessarily as lust directly, but more so as just a low vibration. Okay, because low, like, frequencies attract similar frequencies. Okay, that's why if you are a high vibrational person, you feel abundant, you feel love, you feel connection, you're more likely to run into people of that same vibration, and you're more likely to experience things that align with that vibration or similar vibration. So in the same light, if you're constantly engaging in lust, you'll attract other low vibrations, like, anger and sadness and depression and all these low vibrations, right? So they're, first of all, they're living on a low vibration. Second of all, right, they have less physical energy, because, as I'm sure you know, if you are always releasing, you feel low, like your energy feels lower, you feel more tired. That's why, like, it's such a common piece of information. Everyone knows, once you have sex or once you release, you just feel really tired and you want to go sleep, right? So if you're constantly doing that, you're going to feel more tired all the time. It's simple, right? And lastly, your mental plane becomes, I'm going to use the word corrupted, because your mind, like, lust is like a disease. It's like a mental disease. I think of it like a mental disease. So the way you think when you're engaging in lust becomes tarnished by this sexual view of everything, right? So a lot of the times, if you're doing that stuff and you have to speak to a woman that you find attractive, even if it's a completely platonic conversation, like it might just be a classmate or like a work colleague or whatever, where it's not appropriate to have this sort of view, right? You can't help but have it because you're engaging in it, and then things just become a bit more difficult. Like, holding a normal platonic conversation with an attractive woman becomes way harder, because in the back of your mind you've got a voice screaming that, oh, she's attractive and XYZ, right? So yeah, that's person one. Now imagine person two, right? This person does not release their sexual energy, but instead they hold it in and they transmute it, right? Think about it. Everything here is just flipped, right? They live on a higher vibration, right? Or a higher frequency, yeah? Their reality is void of lust. And with that, you can sort of kill multiple birds with one stone. If you're free of lust, you can also become free of, depression, anxiety, envy, sadness, all these things. They're way more likely to be eradicated if you just tackle lust, right? It's like it spills into all areas of your life. So your vibration goes up, and with that, you don't have to deal with all these low vibrational frequencies, right? Again, more energy, yeah, way more energy. Like I said, I was sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night, and I was waking up and I was full of energy. Like, I was training for 2 hours every day despite being on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I was going to work, I was running around, I was full of energy, and it didn't even like come into my mind like being tired. there was never a point where I was like, oh, I just want to sit down. Like, nah, I was always ready to go. Like, you have so much energy. So if you're working like a 9 to 5 that is maybe physically demanding, for example, this is it's so clutch. It comes in so clutch. You go to work and you're never telling yourself like, oh, I'm so tired, I don't want to be here, I just want to go home. Like your shifts, they just go a lot smoother. Again, I'm speaking from experience, right? Your shifts, they just go a lot smoother, right? There's no negative self-talk, or a lot less negative self-talk. And obviously, lastly, right, you have a, I'm going to use the word divine mental plane. And the reason I use the word divine is because when you're void of lust, you're able to see every human being as an equal. You're able to see them as another version of you, okay? Way easier. Like, I've said this stuff on my channel before about how everyone is just an extension of you. So if you are engaging in lust, everyone becomes an extension of that lust. And obviously not everyone can match that from their perspective. So it just becomes a lot harder to navigate your world entirely. So if you eradicate it, you become more divine. You become like everyone's just an equal, right? It's a lot easier to just love everything unconditionally because you don't have this disease in your head, right? So I'm going to finish off this video by talking about a few ways that you can transmute this energy, because if you're new to this, it's quite overwhelming once you get past a couple of weeks and you're sat there full of energy and you have no idea what to do with it. I'm going to tell you what to do. So first and foremost, this is a non-negotiable. You need to be doing some sort of physical activity every single day, even if it's just like going for a walk for 20 minutes. Do it, because this isn't just like a mental exercise. It also has an effect on your physical body. Like I said, you have way more physical energy, right? And if you're sat in your house, or if you're sat in your home with this overwhelming sense of like physical energy, and you don't go and do something physical, right, you're way more likely to just fall back into old habits, right? So that's number one. Okay, do something physical. Number two is seek purpose in your life. Pick a long-term goal that you want to achieve, a long-term meaningful goal, and start working towards it. Okay, because another thing is having something that you can work towards that is like far away, right? Like, again, it can be like, I want to be this shredded and have this much muscle in 6 months, right? That's a good one. But what I'm trying to say is that doing physical stuff is usually very temporary. You have to keep doing them every single day, and usually there aren't that many like long-term, like meaningful effects, right? So seek a purpose, like start a business, right? Start a YouTube channel, start a, I don't know, TikTok page, do something, right, that you can do outside of your 9 to 5 or outside of your conventional job, right, that is going to have a meaningful impact on your life, right? Because using this energy for physical things is one thing, but you can also use it for mental process, or like mental tasks as well, right? It's a huge game changer for mental tasks as well. It's not just physical. So use it to use your brain more effectively, right? And lastly is seek meaningful relationships with women. Okay, this can kind of go for friends as well. Like, if you're someone who doesn't have a big group of friends and you want friends, like, by all means, go and do this. Like, it boosts you become so much more sociable when you're void of lust. But more importantly, like, try and find a partner. Try and find a woman that you truly connect with, because what you need to understand is that when you're void of lust, your vibration goes up, and with that, you're able to find higher vibrational people, including relationship, like women that you can be in relationships with. So you need to take advantage of having this higher vibration and find a high vibrational female that you can be with, okay? Because it opens up a whole new world of like life, right? If you have a meaningful relationship with a person, it's like a turbocharger for your vibration, right? Your frequency gets turbocharged, right? Because you're experiencing way more love, you're experiencing way more connection. Your baseline mood and happiness is way higher. If again, bear in mind, it has to be with a high vibrational woman. It can't be with some like Jezebel from the street, okay? But I'm sure you knew that. So use it to find someone that you can like build with, right? Because it's it's another purpose, right? It's another good purpose to have, building a family, building a home, right? Seek those things and use your higher vibration from being free of lust to get those things. So yeah,